Hey, what's going on? I hope that you are doing good. Today, I wanted to do a quick overview of the Nord drum, and it's not meant to be comprehensive. My friend Yanis LeWolf has a great deep dive on the Nord drum, and I'll put a link to it. Check that out because he covers every single feature and knob and function and all that sort of stuff. This is meant to be more of like a quick start guide. So if you've just gotten the Nord drum and you're not really sure where to get started, this is a video for that. So the way that I like to look at the Nord drum is these are 6 different monosynths that are in here. And each one of these monosynths has its own tone, or I like to refer to it as an oscillator. It has its own noise, click, it has its own EQ, distortion, and then there is a shared reverb and delay send for all of these. With each one of these individual monosynths, you can control the amount of noise, the amount of the tone or the oscillator, and then there is a total control over the click, noise, and tone or oscillator, and then you can also pan them left or right. Let's go ahead and start making something. So the first thing that I like to do when I turn the Nord drum on is hit both of these, which will enable pad follow. And when you do that, when you hit one of these pads, it's going to select that pad, and that's the one that you're working on. You don't necessarily need to do that. You can also just use this here, and this will indicate which pad you're currently working on. It's just easier for my brain to be able to have this on pad follow. One other thing to take note of is if you take a look down below the top text, you can see that there is some text on the bottom here. And the way that you access that is by holding down this button here and then moving this knob. And it's going to give you access to this right box, which is the bottom red text. The top text is going to be controlled by just moving this and selecting. So for instance, if we select this frequency button here and move this, we've got that. If we want to control this, we can hold down lower parameter and it's going to move that, or we can also just hold that parameter and move that. That's really important. That's the navigation for the whole device. Here is the signal path for the Nord drum. The noise, the click, and the tone are summed together. And then what they're gonna do is go into the distortion for whichever distortion you have set up for each one of these, if you have it set up. And then it's gonna go into the EQ, and then from the EQ, it's gonna pass through the delay and the reverb send, or that's gonna be available for it. And then it's gonna hit this channel mixer, and then you're done, right? Comes out the back. That's the whole path. When I first start making a patch with the Nord drum, the first thing that I like to do is start with the tone or the oscillator. And you have a bunch of different types of oscillators or wave types. And you can control that by holding this down and then moving through these here. I'm gonna give you a brief overview of what all these are. I'm not gonna play each one of them. A is going to be your analog wave type. So we have sine waves and we have triangle, sawtooth, pulse, or square wave, and some different variants of pulse and square waves. As we keep on moving up, you'll see that we have a couple other types. So this is going to be T-bridge, which I believe is the type of oscillator that is used to make the kick drum on the TR-808. We have 2 different versions of that. We have F, which is our FM oscillator or our FM wave type. H, which is our harmonic resonant modeling. If we keep on moving up, we have D, which is our drumhead resonance modeling. This is a great one to use if you were trying to emulate actual acoustic drums. This is a good one for that. If we keep on moving up, we have P, which is resonance modeling of tuned percussion. So basically what that is things like marimbas and vibraphones and that kind of stuff. I normally don't really mess with this because I'm not a vibraphone person. C is for cymbals, and we have a couple different types in here. Okay, and then if we move all the way up here, the last one is ring mod oscillator. And when you mess with some of these parameters, you can get some sort of FM sounds. I'm gonna go all the way back down to our analog type, and I'm gonna go to A3, which is a sine wave. So if you take a look on this left-hand side here, this is going to be your Spectra. And depending on which one of these oscillators or wave types that you are using, you're gonna get a different result or a different function is gonna come out of here. For this particular wave type, whenever I change the Spectra, it is going to add a second oscillator, a detuned oscillator. So let's take a listen real quick. And as we move this up, we can get wider intervals. So for instance, here 70 is going to be a fifth. And if we go all the way up, I believe that this is 2 octaves. An octave. And we can also go in the inverse. You'll also see some other functions that are in here. So for instance, if we go to A6, we're gonna have the analog style pulse wave, and this is going to change the pulse width. Moving across on this oscillator, we have frequency control. And this frequency control is essentially a cutoff. It doesn't have resonance or anything like that, but there is dynamic control for the filter. So depending on how hard you hit it is going to change the place of the cutoff. I like to push this down, and then I may add that later whenever I'm building patches to make them a little bit more dynamic. Right now, we can barely hear this. Let me make sure. I'm gonna go back to here. And as we open this up, this is fixed for the tone. It's always going to be this low pass filter. As we keep moving along here, we have decay, and this is our amp envelope for the tone. And we have a couple of different types that we have in here. We have E, which is going to be our exponential. L, right, is our logarithmic. P is going to be punchy. And then we also have this one here that's showing numbers, and this is just going to be our dynamic control of this. So depending on how hard you hit it is going to determine how open the decay mode is here, which is really, really cool. Keep moving over here, we have bend time, and this parameter over here on this side here is going to determine the depth, and then this is going to be the time. So if we move this up, you can start to hear that. If I hold this down, or if I hold this lower parameter down, we'll move this one here, and this is going to be the time. Let me open up the amp a little bit. Right, so there's a lot of room in there. I'm gonna move this back down so that we just have our tone without any pitch bending. Lastly, over here, we have pitch, which is just gonna change the value of the note. What is really special about this is that it doesn't move down in half steps, it moves down or up in quarter steps. So we're gonna get in between the piano notes. And that's really, really cool because I don't think that a lot of other instruments have that sort of like quantized pitch of going down in quarter steps. You can get some really, really cool music out of using this. I highly recommend that if you have a Nord drum, that you use this function. Okay, let's go back to our frequency. This is important because some of the wave types use frequency for additional functions. With the T-bridge oscillators and the FM oscillators, frequency has a different function, and it's just for those two. Frequency for FM is going to change the FM amount of the wave. And on the T-bridge oscillators, frequency is going to set the mix between the two different oscillators. Just something to keep in mind. Let's take a listen real quick. So we're going to go over to our FM, and as we change the frequency, we're going to hear the FM amount change. Now we just have our sine wave. Let's move this up just a little bit so that we can hear. Right, if we go to our Spectra, it's going to change our detune, but we're not hearing that because we have added no frequency. So this is really important whenever you're working with the T-bridge or the FM oscillators. Let's just take a look real quick. You're starting to already hear that sort of familiar FM sound, and as we move this, and then again, right, if we move this up, this is going to be the FM amount. Let's take a listen real quick to the T-bridge, why not? Right, so now we're just getting the one oscillator, and if we move this way, then we're going to get the mix. Let's go ahead and make our way over to the noise, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our mixer here, and I'm just going to hold this down so that I can turn the tone down, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn the noise all the way up. Here is our noise section here, and we have three different functions here. We have the different type of filter, we have the cutoff of that filter with dynamic control, so depending on how hard you hit it is where the cutoff is going to be, and then we also have an amp for this as well. And the same thing, this amp is also dynamic just like the tone or the oscillator. So I'm going to move this to E for exponential, and if you take a listen, you're hearing this sort of like, and that's because the dynamic filter is enabled. I'm going to disable that by moving this down to 0. We don't hear anything. I'm going to go ahead and open this up, which is the cutoff. Cool, right? So now we're all the way opened up here. There's a couple of different filter types, so I believe that we have a low pass filter that is 12 dB, we have a low pass filter that's 24 dB, 6 dB band pass filter, a 12 dB band pass filter, and then we have the same 6 dB high pass filter, 12 dB high pass filter, and then this is just a high cut filter. And then also something to take note of is that this top parameter here, resonance, controls the amount of resonance on the filter, right? You're almost getting some self-resonance there, which is really, really cool, I think. All right, we're gonna go back to the mixer and we're gonna turn the noise all the way down. Our last item to take a look at is the click. And this is just a transient. That's all that this is here. So we have 4 different types of clicks. We have noise waveforms, we have short pulses, we have high pass filtered short pulses, and then we have clicks with a pitched or somewhat chirpy character. Right? That's what these are called. Let's just take a listen. So this is not part of the mixer. It's basically like you get like the transient and here's the volume for it. Right? And this is our noise waveform. We've got 3 of them. Yow. P is our short pulses. H is our high pass filtered short pulse. And then C. This is my favorite. I don't know what it is about this, but it's just not so like sharp and harsh on the ears. I like these ones a lot. I think pairing this one when you're making a kick drum is really, really good. Anyways, I'm gonna turn this down for now. Let's go ahead and go over to our effects for each one of these different monosynths. We're gonna start with distortion, and there are 3 different types of distortion. So there is overdrive, there is a sample reduction. This is a bit reducer, like a bit reduction, a bit crusher kind of sound. And then we also have the ring modulation distortion. Let's take a listen to these different types. So I'm gonna crank this a little bit. Here's with it off. Let's go ahead and go over to the sample reduction. We're like in a Nintendo territory. Really, really cool. And then our ring modulator. To me, what this sounds like is that we just have an LFO that's modulating amp. It sounds like it's amp modulation, but maybe it's ring modulation. I just don't know what the hell the difference is. Right? It sounds like the volume's going like up and down. And then that amp modulation is just going into the audio realm, but maybe that's what ring modulation distortion is. I just don't know. So next, we're gonna go to this frequency. And right now it's set at neutral. And I'll put this up so that you can see what this looks like. But basically it's a 1-band EQ, and then you have the ability to change its frequency or cutoff position. The EQ here can either be a boost or a cut. Right now, because it's at 0, this is just neutral. But we can either go down, and this can be a cut, or we can go up, and this is gonna be a boost. Let's take a listen real quick to just see what the boost sounds like, and I'm just gonna sweep the cutoff. All right, and then let's go ahead and take it into the cut mode. And when either of these are at their maximum, this is going to be 24 dB, which is pretty cool. Doesn't resonate or anything like that. You have an individual EQ and distortion for each one of these pads, which is really cool because you could have a cut here with sample reduction, you could have a boost here with overdrive, and so on and so forth, if that makes sense. Let's go ahead and go over to our delay and reverb sends. Again, if I hold this down, this is going to be the lower parameter so that we can change the amount of delay. And this top parameter is going to be the reverb. Now, if I hit this, we're not hearing anything. And that's because reverb is currently turned off. I'm not really sure why they did that, but anyways, that's the default initial setting. So we want to go ahead and turn this on. We have 5 different types of reverbs. We have tiled room, we have just a regular room, we have plate, stage, and hall. Let's just take a listen to all of them real quick. This is a really short one, so we're probably not hearing much of that. All right, here's our room, room 2. Plate, plate 2, plate 3, plate 4, stage 1, and then hall, right? And then on the left side here, you see that we have color, or this top parameter, and this is just shaping this with a filter, so it's going to make it either more bright or more dark. You can hear that it's really, really dark there. Much more airy and bright this way. I normally just leave this here. That's just me. Okay, I'm gonna go over to our delay parameter, so we'll go ahead and hit this and move this up so that we can get some delay. And the way that you control the parameters is you hit this here, and this over here on the left side is going to be the rate, or how fast, and then over here, if you hold this down, this is gonna change the feedback amount. So. And this is free running. If you hold down Shift and BPM, this will give you BPM synced. But for the purposes of this, I think we can just stay with the free running one. If we take the feedback and crank this all the way up, it's just gonna go. You can get some really crazy sounds out of this if you throw the rate up. Okay, that's everything. One more time, let's go through the signal path for each one of these 6 different mono synths. So for each one of these, you've got tone, noise, and click, and they are all summed together, and then they will go through the distortion. From the distortion, they go to the EQ, then they can be routed to the reverb and the delay send, and then lastly, you can control the volume through this channel and pan left and right. That's it. That's the whole synth. Hey, thanks for hanging out. I hope that you found this helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, leave a comment, and I'll address it. If it's something that I don't know, I'll ask my friend Yanis, because I know he'll know. And if you get a chance, take a listen to my music. I have an album that I put out a year ago called Precipice, and it's 90% Nordrum, so you know, maybe it might be interesting for you to listen to. I also just dropped an EP called Movement, and I think it's pretty good. So if you get a chance to listen to it, that would be cool, but if not, that's fine too. And I hope that you, hey, I hope that you have a good week. Bye.